Hi everyone, I'm Anne-Marie.
And I'm Gabe. We've got some great tips for you to help you improve your English vocabulary. So, what is our first tip?
Our first tip is read more books. Reading books helps you learn more vocabulary and allows you to see how a word is used.
Here's why it works. As you read, you'll come across a new word. You might not know what that word means, but by using the words and sentences around it, you might be able to figure it out. These are called context clues.
That's right. It's important not to get your dictionary out while you're reading. Try to guess what the word means using context clues. If you're really not sure, write it down and check it later. If you get your dictionary out while you're reading, you'll break up the flow.
Good point. So here's a question. Does it have to be a book? Can you improve your vocabulary with an article or essay?
Yeah, of course you can. But the great thing about learning vocab from a book is that the same words will probably come up again. And if you are working on learning a certain word in context, the story of the book will help you remember it.
Now, we know that not everyone likes to read, but if you can find a book that's about something that interests you, that can help motivate you.
And speaking of interests, that brings us to tip number 2, or niche vocabulary.
A niche is a specialized segment or part of something else. A niche could be a hobby like photography, computer games, hiking, or history.
Now, the thing about photography, computer games, hiking, and history is the words you'll need in English to understand, talk about, and read about them is all different.
Right. You wouldn't use the same words to talk about the parts of a camera as you would to discuss world history.
So, it's important when you're looking to improve your vocabulary to figure out what you're interested in and focus on learning the vocabulary for that topic.
But actually, it's not just hobbies we're talking about here. Learning niche vocabulary can also apply to those looking to expand their careers in English.
Good point. If you're planning to go into the medical field, the vocabulary you need is different than the vocabulary you'll need if you're planning to work for a foreign marketing company.
And of course, eventually you might want to learn all the vocabulary you possibly can about every topic there is, but right now that might not be an attainable goal for you.
So start with niche vocabulary, words that have to do with your interests, field of study, or planned career path, and go from there.
And speaking of niche vocabulary, the next tip deals with some niche vocabulary when it comes to learning English.
Yeah, that's right. The next tip we're talking about today is learn prefixes, suffixes, and roots.
Let's define what those three things are.
Okay, a prefix is a letter or group of letters which is added to the beginning of a word in order to form a different word.
Here's an example. Let's look at the prefix in. One of the definitions of the prefix in is not, or to not be. In this case, in forms words such as incorrect,
Not correct,
incomplete,
not complete,
and inability.
to not have the ability to do something. Can you see how knowing this prefix could help you expand your vocabulary and understand new words that you don't know?
Suffixes work in a similar way. They are a group of letters added to the end of a word, such as the suffix ness.
Ness is the state of being something, and it turns adjectives into nouns, like kind to kindness, heavy to heaviness, or complete to completeness.
That leaves us with roots. A root is a word that doesn't have a prefix or a suffix added onto it. Let's take the word kind that Anne-Marie just mentioned.
Okay, so we already added a suffix to make kindness. We could add a prefix to make unkind.
Or you could add a different suffix to make the adverb kindly.
This gives you endless possibilities for expanding your vocabulary. All you need to do is learn some basic prefixes and suffixes and what they mean. This will also help you when you're guessing the meaning of new vocabulary.
Prefixes and suffixes, which ones do you already know?
All right, our last tip for you today is using the vocabulary that you know.
Have you ever heard the phrase, if you don't use it, you'll lose it?
I have. In an English learning context, it means if you don't use what you know, you'll lose the knowledge.
Yes, in terms of vocabulary, this is especially true. Once you learn a new vocabulary word, the temptation is to feel like you've got it, and maybe after you've taken a test, to forget about that word and move on to the next one.
But if you're studying English because you want to know and speak English, you can't think like that. You have to be constantly using your new vocabulary to practice it and help you remember it.
Think about it. What's the point of learning new vocabulary if you can't even remember the vocab you already know? It might be okay for just getting through a test in school, but it won't improve your language ability.
Right. So the point is, practice the vocabulary you already know in conversations and writing as much as you can. Use new words many times to help you remember them.
The more you use a word, the less likely you are to forget it.
Are you practicing the vocabulary you already know? Use it so you don't lose it.
If you found these tips helpful, check out the other English learning tips we have on this channel. That is the空中英语教室杂志 official channel.
We'll see you there.